Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crypto Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Charles. Enjoy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 39 of the Crypto Entrepreneurs Podcast. It's your host, Charles the ETH, and today we're going to be sitting down with Sam, aka SBF Alameda. It's his name on Twitter. And he's the CEO of FTX, which is a crypto exchange, and then also the CEO of Alameda Research, which is a fund that does about $1 billion or so in volume, trading volume per day. You've probably seen them on the Bitmex leaderboard. I think they've taken 4th and 9th, or they're at 4th and 9th right now in total profit, and they've made about 7,000 Bitcoin in profit in the last 8 months. So today we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to be talking about, SBF, Alameda Research, and, kind of what they are, what they do. We're also going to be talking about the exchange that got set up, FTX. And most importantly, right around the middle of the show, we're going to be talking about this sort of gamification in crypto that we've seen with some of these trading competitions. FTX has had a couple already that they've run. And then on the 1st of October, they're starting a month-long competition called the Battle Royale. So we're going to be discussing that, some of the prizes, how you guys can get involved, et cetera, et cetera. We're also going to talk about, what the exchange has in their pipeline for the next 12 months. And then we're going to finish with some tips that Sam has on how to become a profitable trader and some of the reasons he thinks that you should make the switch to FTX. And then to wrap everything up, we're going to do a quick Q&A. I put up a tweet, and that tweet just said, if you guys have any questions for Sam, drop them here. I'm going to read through every single one of those questions. And I want to start doing this as a way to get you guys involved, because I have my questions that I always kind of answer or ask. And I think this will be a great way for you guys to get your questions out there, because sometimes those don't get answered on social media sites. But, that's enough of me talking. Let's get into this, and let's get Sam to talk about some of it. So, Sam, before we really get into things, can you just give us a little bit of background on yourself and then Alameda Research as well? I know you're pretty well known in the space. If you look at the Bitmex leaderboard, you guys are, I think, 4th and 9th on the leaderboard, and you guys have made something like 7,000 Bitcoin. And for anyone who's listening, at the time, that's equivalent to about $56 million at the time of recording. So if you could just give us a little background on, both of those, that would be super awesome, just so my audience can understand who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess before this, I was trading, ETFs at Chain Street Capital, left that in 2017 to start up Alameda. It's a quantitative cryptocurrency trading firm, which means, just basically a combination of arbitrage, quantitative strategies, liquidity providing, OTC trading in crypto, trading something like $1 billion a day globally on, something like 30 different exchanges. Obviously, Bitmex is one of them. It's been going for something like 2 years now. And so that's sort of, first business in crypto. And then about, 6 months ago or so, started up FTX, which is a crypto derivatives exchange.
So yeah, you had a lot of experience prior to trading crypto. You said you were trading ETFs, and you guys have a number of different, strategies that you guys use. And you also said that you're doing about $1 billion per day, which is, unheard of for most people. And a lot of the guests I have on here are, I would say small time. So it's awesome to sit down with you and speak about this kind of stuff. And you said it started about 2 years ago. And then you said as of about 6 months ago, you've got that derivatives exchange, FTX. So can you just talk to us a little bit about why you created FTX, and some of, I'd say, the core values that it was founded on? And then can you also give us...
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think you could also give us like some of the products that you guys offer?
Yeah. So, started up FTX about 6 months ago, and I think a lot of where this came from is trading with Alameda Research, who got pretty frustrated with the current derivatives exchanges in crypto, felt like there's a lot of room to improve on them, and that they were sort of clunky to use in a lot of ways. One example of this is clawbacks. Obviously, there's a ton last year. One example of this is margin being a pain to manage on a lot of them, especially between multiple different futures where you have to separately manage each one. One of this is just a lack of innovation in the space where there sort of weren't any new products released. It was just the same old batch of things, basically just quarterly and perpetual futures. Some of this is, not even that many coins had features on them. And so just a bunch of things combined, and we felt like there's, a pretty big opportunity for innovation in the space, and that, there's the current, products just weren't offering everything that, that we and others wanted. And so, given sort of all the experience that we had dealing with them, it seemed like we had a pretty good opportunity to try and improve on the current offerings.
Yeah, you talked about some of, because you guys are a massive fund. You're trading, like you said, $1 billion+ a day. And so you probably understand firsthand more than most do some of the kind of downfalls of these other, exchanges. You talked about them being a bit clunky, and margin being a pain to manage, sort of lack of innovation, and also the fact that not many coins had futures. So do you just think you could talk about a couple for my audience? Because I've gone through the exchange myself and kind of looked at it and taken a look at what you guys offered. But for my audience, do you think you could just talk about a couple of the different things that you guys offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that we have, which I think is kind of cool, is these index futures. So, if you wanted to, for instance, just get short, mid-cap coins in general, you can do that by, shorting our mid-cap index, which has, things like, BitTorrent and ADA and Stellar and things like that in it. If you wanted to, say buy some ICO, but hedge your exposure to sort of the ICO sector in general, you could buy into it, but hedge by shorting our shitcoin index. And if you sort of were bullish on alts versus BTC, you could get long alts, which is our altcoin future, against short Bitcoin. And so what these are is they're basically futures which expire to the average of a bunch of different coins and let you sort of easily trade sectors of the crypto industry. So we also have an exchange token index if you think those are going to do particularly well or poorly. So, that's sort of one direction here. Another thing that I would, say is that we have, we've got these leverage tokens, which are basically ERC20 tokens that give you leverage exposure. So if these, plus and minus 3x tokens, we have plus and minus 10x tokens. And so basically, it's a way to put on a leveraged position without having to manage, margin or anything like that. You just, a spot trade and the token manages that for you. So that's sort of another cool product that we have. And then we recently released our first options contracts. And what these are is we call them move contracts. And they're basically futures which expire to the amount Bitcoin moves in a day. And so, here I'm looking at the October 1st move contract, which is trading about $215 right now. And what that means is that, this thing's going to end up turning into a number of dollars, which is equal to however much Bitcoin moves tomorrow in absolute value. So if Bitcoin goes up or down, it doesn't matter, just how much it moves. And so it sort of, lets you bet on how volatile markets are going to be, how much things are going to be moving around without, needing to know which direction things are going to go. And I think it's, one of the nice things is it's basically an options contract. It's a straddle for those who have experience with options, but it's really clean and easy to understand. Like, you don't have to think about, Black-Scholes or something like that. It's just, this is how much Bitcoin moves tomorrow in dollar space. And so, we're hoping that it becomes sort of a kind of default way to hedge and place, sort of bets on volatility.
So just for a little recap for my audience, a couple things you talked about there were these different indices that you have. You've got like the shitcoin index and the altcoin index, mid-cap index. Then you've got these leverage tokens and then also these options and these option contracts that you were talking about. So it sounds like, you have a lot of different products that are really differentiating yourself from others in the space. When you think of the standard exchange, you've got, your buy and sell options, and then obviously it gets a little bit more complex if you're trading on something like Bitmex. So I appreciate you kind of giving us a rundown of some of the products that you guys have, and then also the fact that, you kind of are trying to make this easier for everyone to understand, which is a huge thing in my opinion. I have a lot of people when I speak to them who just don't really understand how simple things like leverage work. The fact that you guys are trying to make it easier is something that I really respect.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. There was one other thing I did want to ask just about the exchange in general, because I've actually had the founders of one other exchange on. It's a smaller exchange. I'm not going to name who it is. But we talked about, everything that went into creating the exchange. And we talked about, this 2-year long process, that, everything that went into it. So could you just give us, kind of like a quick, just recap of, how much time has actually gone into creating this exchange?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's been a lot of work, and it's been a relatively short time period. We started work about a year ago, but we've put a lot into it, and I think that, obviously they're sort of building out the code base, which is one big piece of it. There's figuring out how to market it, how to get customers, how to present it. There's managing sort of the operational end of it, everything from, interfacing with customers, handling support tickets, to, thinking about how to describe our products, what to put on our Zendesk. There's a lot of sort of quick pivots that we need to make in terms of exactly what the products are. There's a lot of trying to gather customer feedback about things and then implement it, and sort of trying to cut through the noise and handle the fact that different people have different preferences, and we'll often get some people saying obviously we should do it this way, other people say no, you should do it this other way, and figuring out what to do there when not everyone agrees about something. So I think that those are all sort of things that go into the process. But I would say the biggest thing is that, like, in order to make it as good as we can, it's just a ton of work. Like, we just keep doing things. We keep rolling out new products, new competitions, new features. We keep interfacing with the community, and just sort of keep trying to tweak it in ways that are sometimes big and sometimes small.
Okay, perfect. So I appreciate you kind of giving us the background and what's gone into making this exchange. You touched on a couple things there that I kind of want to elaborate on a bit, and that was, getting customers and these kind of competitions that you guys are having. Because I've noticed, this new trend. Maybe it's not new, but I've definitely noticed it a lot more recently, and that's kind of this whole idea of gamification in crypto. And you guys have this trading competition that is, I guess, currently going on, or it may be, a couple different competitions, but you have the Battle Royale. So can you just give us a rundown on what that is, and what's at stake in these competitions, some of the prizes that people can win, and then how, like, the role of gamification on crypto that you see, kind of in the future?
Yeah. So, I think that obviously there's a lot of things that are being gamified in the world. I think it tends to make things engaging. And as you said, Battle Royale, which is our big sort of trading competition coming up next month, is one example of this. I think that in general, ways to give people quick feedback about how they're doing, ways to make it, more lively and engaging, and ways to make it more interactive with others in the community, often really make the experience sort of more exciting for people to use. And so I think that's definitely a lot of what we're thinking of there, is just like, it's fun, it's engaging. I think that it makes it just a lot more exciting to be using the product, and to be trading crypto. And so I think that's sort of the flow that we're thinking about there.
So, I've definitely, with some of these, even like short competitions that you guys are currently running, like the 48-hour competition that you guys just had. I've seen a lot of buzz, and there's been a lot of buzz on social media, and I think it's been fun and engaging, like you're saying. And one of the things that I really like that you guys are doing is that you can stake FTT on different traders. The guy who won your last competition, Cold-Blooded Schiller, I actually had him on, and he's the next episode that I'll be dropping this coming Monday. And I think he's got like 50 people or something like that. It could be more now. But it gives people who aren't trading, this kind of way to participate, and you're really getting the whole community involved in a way. So can we just talk about?
Totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are doing a very good job of. It's, I think there's two ways to get people on the exchanges, and one way is to do, just a straightforward referral program, and I've seen some success with that. I know you guys do have a referral program that you're running as well. But I don't think it's as successful as when you have these kind of competitions where people want to sign up and they want to prove themselves to the community, and it really gets everyone involved. But before
I totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we move on, can we maybe talk about some of these prizes that are involved, and can you kind of give us, the specifics on the Battle Royale and how that works?
Yeah. So, the first thing I'll say is, if you go to ftx.com, there's a tab at the top for Battle Royale, and you can find, all the details there. But I think basic answer is that, it's going to be a month-long competition. It's going to be, starting up, it's basically tomorrow. It's basically there's going to be, a few $100,000 of prizes handed out during it, in addition to very generous referral fees and things like that. Basically there's going to be prizes from everything from trading well to having a lot of people sort of staking you as a trader, which means basically, kind of rooting for you, backing you, and betting that you're going to win, to, staking the people who do in fact do well, to then, a lot of sort of random prizes for, trading a particular type of coin, or making money trading this product or something like that. And so there's going to be a bunch of small prizes to win. A lot of these are FTT based, which is our exchange token, but we're also handing out everything from Battle Station, which is sort of the computer setup we use here with a computer and monitors and desk and stuff like that, and a bunch of other sort of creative non-monetary prizes as well.
There we go. So there's there's a chance for everyone to win something here. It sounds like you guys are just giving out prizes left and right. But there's that big prize. I guess in total you guys are giving away a couple $100,000, and for anyone who's trading, that's there's got to be a big draw there. So I'm looking forward to the start of this competition. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but is it each week the bottom 50% get knocked off?
So that is actually, we'll have a more definitive policy there. We're actually just reviewing that. And the reason basically is, some of the feedback we've gotten is like, it's kind of lame if you get knocked out.
That makes a little bit of sense.
So we'll have an announcement very soon about exactly how that's gonna work. But I think basically what we're leaning towards now is that there's going to be sort of a grand prize, for sort of an ultimate winner, which will involve something like some percent getting knocked out from contention for that each week. But everyone will still be able to participate in the rest of Battle Royale and be eligible for the other prizes.
There we go. I really like that you guys have taken that feedback from, I don't know if it's from the community or just from the team, but even up until the last day, you guys are making changes to make sure that this, kicks off without a hitch. So I really appreciate.
I think in general, in general, I think we're pretty excited to be making changes, and I think we think there's a lot of gain to be made from making changes, and that as long as you're generally responsive to people about them, the quicker you can iterate on these things, just the better the product ends up being.
100% agree there. And it is the community. It's community based. These are the community is going to be the ones out there trading. So, to take their input and implement it really speaks to who you guys are and the exchange that you guys are trying to be. So I really appreciate you giving us a rundown of not only the exchange, but then this competition that you've got going on. I'm really excited to, see how that plays out, specifically because I did have Cold-Blooded Chiller on, not even a week ago, and he got me really hyped on it because I don't know if you guys are in talks at all or if you know the standings, but he hit, I think it was like a 23x or 26x in 2 days, which is, unreal.
He had quite a good period, and I think he's had a number of good days too in the current Moon or Doom challenge. So
yeah. So this last one that I think is just ending or did just end, him and like a bunch of his buddies who all kind of had the CBS in their name. I think they took, second or third through like fifth or sixth. So They just had a bunch of people up on the leaderboard killing it. So I'm super stoked for that. So this starts tomorrow, like you were saying. There's obviously got to be, a longer term vision. So is there anything in the pipeline that you're super stoked for in the next 12 months? What have you guys got going on for the next year?
So there's a bunch of shit, and I think that and some of this is, there's a lot of things we want to do, and we're not sure exactly which of these we will do. And some of this is getting feedback from people. Some of this is getting feedback from legal counsel, and some of this is just playing around with the products. But I think that the things that are sort of on the docket to consider doing in the next 12 months or so, obviously sort of the standard things like continuing to build out the customer base, launching more sort of versions of the current products, futures on more tokens, things like that. So there's sort of the standard stuff.
Of course.
But sort of outside of that, I think that one thing obviously is we might build out the option space more. Move is sort of our first listing in that area, and we're going to see how that goes. So far, I think we've been happy with the rollout. But that's one thing. I think that another thing is we're considering various prediction market type stuff. It's not a given that we're going to do that. That's something that we still have to coordinate on the legal implications with amongst other things. But it's definitely something we're considering. I think another thing that has been somewhat under consideration are things like hash rate futures. Other things that we're thinking about building out the spot markets more. And then maybe a last thing that I'll talk about is coordinating more with other exchanges. And so you could see that obviously getting FTT and leverage tokens listed on other exchanges is one of the big things there. But there's a lot of other areas for cooperation as well. And that's sort of another thing that we're pretty actively working on behind the scenes. And, no announcements there yet, but we're optimistic that some cool things will come of that.
Of course. I know it's always hard when I ask people this question because everyone who's building these businesses, they really want to make sure that, their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed. And so they don't want to be like, hey, this is what we have coming up. But I just want to go over some of that stuff that is, at least on your mind and stuff that you will be working towards. You talked about growing your customers, futures on more tokens. You talked about building out the option space and also these prediction markets. You talked about hash rate futures. Sounds like there's going to be some really fun stuff. And then last but not least, you did talk about coordinating with other exchanges, which I think is immensely important. Not only just to get, FTT on other exchanges, but for a number of other reasons. So it sounds like you guys have a big year. And with this competition and the way you guys have launched, this first 6 months, you guys have really hit the ground running. So I'm excited to see, where your exchange grows and how it progresses over the next year.
Well, we are too.
Yeah. No, I'm stoked for you guys. And again, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about all of this stuff because it really allows your users to kind of see your vision and also see, what went into creating this exchange, and it kind of gives them that background that they want and need. So before we, end, I usually like to end with some sort of tip from my guest because, I consider you guys the expert in whatever field you're talking about and whatever topic you come on to talk about. So you're you're the CEO of Alameda Research. Like I said, you guys have, you've got like 7K in profit just on the Bitmex leaderboard. So you guys are obviously killing it. So if you want to dumb it down for us a little bit and just give my audience your biggest tip on becoming a profitable trader, I think they would love that. I would love to hear it from you, and really get into your mind. And then a second question, less of a tip, but more of a suggestion. Can you give us one reason and your biggest reason for why you think people should make the switch over to FTX?
Yeah. So I guess on the first one, obviously there's a bunch of different types of trading, and they all have sort of, different things are important for them. And part of this is figuring out what type of trading, you're going to be doing. But I guess what I'd say is, whatever trade, and obviously, not financial advice, is just me bullshitting here.
Of course, yeah.
But yep. But figuring out what trade are you doing, where's your edge coming from in it, like why do you think it's good, and really honing in on that, really honing in on like what's the thing you're doing that other people don't know how to do or aren't as good at. What's really kind of your advantage here, what's the angle you're going for, why do you think that works, and sort of what's your evidence for that, and sort of holding yourself to a pretty high standard of accountability there, and really thinking about like, I'm claiming that I think this trade's good for these reasons. Like, is that really true? Has the evidence borne that out? Keeping detailed history of your trading to see if, if that really does seem to be true, and sort of, not letting yourself just ignore all the bad cases and just focus on the good ones. And if it doesn't seem to be working sometimes, then, trying to think about like, what's, do I think there's still a trade here? And if so, like, what should I be changing about what I'm doing? So I don't know. I think that's sort of, in general, the advice that I give. And obviously, for more specifically, it depends on whether you're doing like arbitrage or quant trading or, or sort of swing trading or what. One thing I guess I'll say on arbitrage, which is something we've thought a lot about, is always be careful about the details. Often the devil's really in the details here. And, if you think you see an arbitrage, make sure that, make sure that you can actually withdraw the coin from both the exchanges, or if it's a futures contract, make sure you know what it expires to and that it's basically the same thing. Make sure that you're thinking about, fees, obviously. Make sure that you can actually do both sides of the trade, that you can do them at the same time for the same size. Be careful about, if there's a fiat currency involved, whether that fiat currency is actually withdrawable from that exchange. These are sort of issues that we run into a lot. And often a trade that seems very good will end up being bad because of these details.
I really appreciate that. Before we get into that second question, because you did go over a lot there, I just want to recap it, because I think that stuff that you just touched on is insanely important. With regards to just more of the general sense, you first need to figure out, what kind of trading you want to do. And then after you find what type of trading you want to do, you really need to hone in on your edge and, explore why you have an advantage. And then after you figure out what your edge is, explore why it works, and then hold yourself to a very high standard. I think this is crucial. And it's funny because, with your new exchange and this trading competition and making trading kind of more of a fun thing, I think a lot of people lose sight of how much work, effort, and work ethic is needed to become a profitable trader. So I like that, you can have all this fun stuff and run these kind of competitions, but at the end of the day, you really are, focused on this very strong work ethic and really, double checking everything to make sure that you can be profitable. And then you did mention the arbitrage trading, and it's crazy because, if you look at, especially, and you guys are doing things a little bit, more big time than I'd say I was, but when I look at, even just specific exchanges, coin prices they fluctuate so wildly, and there's such differences from one exchange to the other. But then you talked about how you really need to double check that everything is okay with the trade. For example, I saw at one point Chainlink was trading at like $4 on one exchange, and on every other exchange it was $1.50 or something like that. This was a little while ago.
Wow.
And yeah, it was wild. And I think the reason that it was that, one, it wasn't open to most traders, in the US and other countries. And then two, they weren't allowing withdrawals at the time. And so there was that cause for that wild fluctuation in price and that wild difference. And I think a lot of people rushed into it trying to make some money off that, the arbitrage opportunity there. But it really wasn't there. So I appreciate
and you've realized, you can only do one leg of the trade. You can only buy and not sell, and there goes your arbitrage. And now all of a sudden, instead of doing an arbitrage, you're just betting Link's going to go up, which is not what you're trying to do.
Exactly. No. So, okay, you gave us some wonderful tips. And then do you think you could also talk on that second topic, which is why, like, the biggest reason that you think that people should make the switch to FTX?
So, I think that, one part is that we just have a ton of things other exchanges don't have, from the futures on a bunch of tokens like BNB, HT that a lot of places don't have, to, the index futures, to leverage tokens, the move contracts. And so if any of those are exciting to you, we'd love to have you there. We're rolling out new stuff every week. We're trying to be super responsive and create the product people want. The margin system, it's super easy. You just have one account. You can put dollars, Bitcoin, ETH, Tether, FTT in it, and that can power all of your futures trading. We're going to keep growing and keep getting better and keep building new features that people want. And so, especially if you're excited about it now, I'd say, it's only up from here.
There we go. So yeah, I asked you earlier in this conversation, can you just give us some of the products that you guys offer? And a lot of those products were, products that are not offered on other sites. So I guess that is your main selling point right there. One, I don't want to say it's a criticism, but I think a lot of people are skeptical when new exchanges pop up with regards to security. Can you touch on any of that, kind of put people's minds at ease there?
Absolutely. So, we have a standard sort of hot wallet, cold wallet setup where the hot wallet, is backed by outside funds. And so that's, not user money at risk there. We'll, fully reimburse that. And have funds set aside in the event of a hacking. And then the other thing that I talk about, which is sort of key for derivatives exchanges in particular, is managing clawback risk, because, for derivatives exchanges, more money was lost to clawbacks than to hacks, last year. And so, basically a big thing is like, do you run into cases where, there's a giant liquidation, it gets unfilled, and then there's, an account that goes bankrupt and the other users of the site are kind of stuck holding that bag. And so we've, put in a bunch of work to trying to prevent that, to trying to, really design, design a liquidation mechanism that's resilient to that. And, we're pretty happy with what's come out of that. We, haven't had any clawbacks ever, and, hope that we never will have to do that with, combination of liquidation orders, backstop liquidity providers, insurance fund, and sort of thinking hard about exactly what margin parameters make sense.
There we go. So you touched on, two of the big things there, which is this ability to manage the clawback risk. And then you talked about the fact that you have hot and cold wallets like every other exchange pretty much, and that they're backed by non-user funds. So that pretty much puts my mind at ease when I'm looking for an exchange. So I really appreciate that. Now, before we go, I did put up a tweet just saying that I was going to have you on, and I wanted to do a little Q&A at the end. So if you're cool with it, do you think I could just rattle off some of these questions that people asked?
Go for it.
Okay, a lot of them are, the Twitter community is pretty, I don't want to say immature, but immature in a sense. So I'm going to read off all of them.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm going to read off all of them, and you can just laugh them off, and we'll move on. But Trader Keck asked how he can bypass KYC, which obviously we're not going to answer. So there we go. There's that. Let's see. Kinbit asked, or he said, in a previous interview, I didn't understand Is Alameda using quant strategy also on Bitmex? Like, for example, long Bitcoin, short ETH.
So I think what I'd say is like potentially where in general Alameda has a reasonably hedged book, but especially on short time scales, it will sometimes use quant strategies.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. The whiskey guy. He wants to know what kind of product do you use for your hair?
Yes, Head and Shoulders.
Head and Shoulders. Okay. This one's actually a little bit more important. From 789 Kryptonite, he says, where do you see the longevity of your coin going? And that's FTT.
So I think the biggest things obviously are sort of the buy and burn, of a third of the fees, and then there's also the fee discounts for holding FTT on the exchange. There's a bunch of other things too, and there's FTT staking for Battle Royale, and we'll keep doing things like that, get tighter OTC spreads, and we're going to keep tacking more things onto that over time to make sure that it that it really is an important part of FTX.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So only price action asked, have you ever thought about quitting trading? Is there anything else that you would do if you were to quit trading?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a time when I almost stopped to go work at a charity actually, and I think that eventually there's a chance that at some point I go back to that, and I think that in the end, a lot of the reason that I'm doing sort of trading in the first place is to have money to donate to charities. So
right on. I really respect that, and I know the community will as well. So thank you for that. Beagle Boy BTC asks if you guys are planning on opening a merch shop anytime soon, and then dropped a picture of the 100 FTX condoms that you guys gave out.
It's definitely something we're considering. I think it's mostly bottlenecked on figuring out exactly how much operational work is involved in shipping things. But I think it's definitely something we'd like to have.
Right on. Perfect. I feel like a lot of people, when I think of merch, I think of Binance and their hoodies, and everyone's screaming for a Binance hoodie. So I think you guys would be, I think a lot of people would be stoked on that once you guys get that up and running. Psycho on Wall Street wants to know how much you squat.
Oh boy, just say not very much.
Okay, perfect. We got a real question from US Goose. And that is, does Alameda do VC style investments, or is it purely active trading?
It has been purely active trading. I think that like somewhere on the 1 to 2 year roadmap is thinking more about VC style investments. And I think that it's an area that we're moderately excited to get involved in at some point. Okay. But that so far have not done.
Okay, so investigating the idea of it, but haven't done so yet. And then he had another question, is how long did it take to build FTX? We talked about that. And then he also wanted to know how long it took you guys to actually break into the top 10 on the Bitmex leaderboard. I know you guys have been running for about 2 years, but how long did it take once you hopped on Bitmex to get up there?
I mean, so there are a few accounts. I think in general, the answer is something like something like 2 to 8 months has been sort of the time period for the accounts that got there. And there's been a bunch of accounts over time. So
there we go. Yeah. I've seen those two up there for a little while now, at least. But okay, so like 8 months or so. And then Cold Blooded Chiller actually just dropped some questions not too long ago. That was earlier tonight. We touched on some of them, so I'm not going to ask them all. But let's see, we got, are Bitcoin pairs still being considered for the platform?
Yeah, they are still being considered. It got put on the back burner a little bit, partially because we were rolling out a bunch of other stuff, and partially because it turns out to be a little bit trickier than we were anticipating to do it in a way that's clean. And we're still not sure exactly what we're going to end up doing. We might end up doing this custom page where you can basically specify a linear combination of or a ratio of coins and trade that. But we still have to decide exactly what's going to happen there. We still do think we're going to do something like that at some point. But but I don't know exactly what form it'll take.
There we go. Perfect. And then he's also got the question, I don't know if you can answer this. I don't know if it's even, you're legally allowed to answer it. But are there any other coins under consideration for adding?
Yeah, for adding futures on?
Yeah.
I think that like right now, I would say that our focus isn't particularly on adding futures on new coins. I think it's more on thinking about, should we list move products for the other tokens on the site? Should we, things like that. There are a few coins which we've thought about, and I think that like, there's some sort of mid-market cap coins that we'd ideally like, and I think like ADA, Stellar are some of these, and so I think that we're sort of considering adding those, but it's not a super high priority right now. I think that we'd prefer to build out things like the move products on the current coins and maybe list a couple other index features.
Okay, perfect. And then he did also ask about the gamification of crypto, and the gamification of crypto exchanges, which we did talk about. It was kind of one of our main talking points, so we don't have to get into that again. And then the last question was from Crypto Crine, and he wants to know if FTX will have a chat room.
So FTX, what you mean by a chat room exactly? So we do have obviously a Telegram group, and there's also a troll box. So the troll box is not very heavily used right now.
There we go. I'm assuming he was talking about some sort of troll box, but I mean, it may just not be heavily used at the moment, so maybe
It is not, and there's usually like 5 people on it or something, but...
There we go. Okay. And then you mentioned that you guys do have a Telegram, so I think that pretty much wraps up all of the Q&A. I really appreciate you sitting down and, kind of going through all those. I know a lot of them were kind of silly and more of just like a joke question, but I did promise that I would ask them all. And so I did have to ask you all of those, and I appreciate you giving us straight answers on all of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps everything up. I got all of my questions answered. If there's anything else that you wanted to add or want my audience to know, please. I think we covered everything, and I think we did a great job of that. But if there's anything else, please, have at it.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for having me. This was fun, and and thanks for all the questions. And obviously everyone can feel free to stay in touch with us on Telegram, on Twitter. We have a WeChat group for Chinese, and obviously you can also email us or whatever else.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll actually have a link to all of that in the description of the show. So I'll have the Twitter, I'll have the email, I'll have the Telegram group and the WeChat as well, so that they can get in contact. So again, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to kind of just talk to us about your exchange, Alameda research, and this competition that you guys are running.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that wraps up another episode. And I just want to take a quick second to ask you a huge favor. If you found anything in the episode helpful, or it's been inspiring to you in any way, I just ask that you share it with your friends, family, anyone you know on social media, and hopefully we can help them out as well. Have a good one.